Hello there ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing? It's Alexander Hilly123 here and it's time for a new video, and as you can see from the title, it is a top 10 video today. My top 10 folk albums of all time / singer-songwriter as well. You see, the thing is, some people won't think that some of the picks in this list are true folk music, or is true folk music, but you've got to forgive me. Some are maybe going to be folk rock or folk pop, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, they kind of go under the folk moniker, and they're all really good in their own right. Let's not be holier than thou about this, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, top 10, but I have about another 7 I want to quickly talk about. I'm just going to brush through these quickly. I feel really bad that the following artists didn't make the top 10. Jose Gonzalez, his first album. Tom Waits, one of my favourite musicians ever, one of my favourite artists ever. I didn't think I could categorise him as folk. If I did, one of his albums would be in this list because he's a genius, he's one of my music heroes. John Martyn, one of his first couple of albums could have been on this list. Neil Young, Harvest Moon in particular, one of my favourites. Simon and Garfunkel, Sounds of Silence I went for in the end, nearly made the top 10. One of the first, any of the first 3 Band of Horses albums. Iron and Wine's second album, Endless Numbered Days, absolutely wonderful. His last album was a return to form actually, after he kind of sold out and made a few pop albums. But I want to give a special quick mention here. If you're a folk music fan and you've stumbled across this video, I'm no expert, I want to put it out there, you'll probably be able to tell. But someone in modern music who is very unappreciated and underrated in my opinion, incredibly talented, is a gentleman named Pickering Pick. He's an English fella living in America, in Los Angeles, and I would like to compare him to an artist that's in my top 10, but I can't do that because I don't want to name one of the artists who's in my top 10 yet. All I will say is that he's no longer on this mortal coil. He left us a long time ago, but this guy's music is so similar, and he's the most similar artist I've heard to said artist who's no longer with us. And if you don't mind paying for music that you never heard, if you're a passionate music fan, if you like folk music, and if you like it on the more somber, melancholic, morose side, Burr, you know, just him and an acoustic guitar, a bit of electric guitar here and there, a tiny bit, and piano, very minimal, but with the finger picking skills that he's got, very technical as well, just fills these songs, and wow, it's amazing. The album's called Tropic. He's made about 6 albums, but the album Tropic in particular is my favourite from 4 years ago. Obviously you can find it on Spotify as well, but yeah, Pickering Pick, check that guy out because it's incredible music, and I think that if he made that album in the heyday of folk in like the late 60s, early 70s, he'd be much more popular than he is. But if you guys have got any recommendations for me based on what I like on this list, please hit me with them. We've got to share the music. Even if you think it's obvious, it doesn't really matter. Finding new music is always an incredible thing. Anyway, in at number 10, I've got the Wikipedia articles to help me. By the way, I'm in bed, as you can see. It's nice winter time now, so I'm covered up. But yeah, I think, what the hell was that? You hear that? I think winter time is the best time for me personally to listen to folk music. Nice cup of tea, relaxing and whatnot. In the night time, awesome. Anyway, Declaration of Dependence, ladies and gentlemen. It is Kings of Convenience in at number 10. This is a more modern one, released in October 2009. The Norwegian duo of Erik Boe and Erlend Øye. Erlend Øye, well, what can you say? Just look at him. Someone on Last FM a long time ago compared him to Averman from the Mighty Ducks. Now, if anyone's seen the Mighty Ducks before, the ice hockey movie, they'll be laughing because he does look like Averman from the Mighty Ducks, and it made me belly laugh. It was absolutely hilarious. But I won't say that to his face. Erlend Øye, lovely voice, and I've already mentioned them, but to be honest with you, a cheap and easy comparison is a modern Simon and Garfunkel if you've never heard Kings of Convenience. So soft, harmonising. Erik Boe and Erlend Øye, the voices work so well together. 2 guitars, some songs have drums, maybe a bit of bass and other such instruments, and then you've got tracks which are much more Burr and minimal. Absolutely gorgeous though, maybe a little bit on the cheesy side and maybe a little bit on the indie side. I don't know what that word means. And definitely more pop orientated. That's why it's only at number 10. But these guys, something special for me. And I particularly loved this album. It got good reviews, but a lot of people think that their second album, Riot on an Empty Street, is their best. Don't get me wrong, that's a great album as well. But something about this album is so special to me. In 2009, when it was released, I was getting into so much music at that time when I was like 19, 20 years old. A lot of heavier music, to be honest with you. But I was finding my way with folk music as well. But yeah, the song I've picked as my favourite on this album, Second to Numb. Erland, you can actually hear him at the start. I don't know what he says, but just listen to the start of the track and you'll know what I mean. I just love that. It's just, oh man. But 24-25, Rule My World, Power of Not Knowing, Freedom and Its Owner, Scars on Land, Riot on an Empty Street. You know, it's poppy, but to be honest with you, some of these tracks are not that easy to get into because of how minimal they are. I just think it's a fantastic album, and to be honest, I think it's a little bit underrated compared to Riot on an Empty Street. Anyway, I've got to move on. This album, in at number 9, we're going all the way to the USA, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, some people will not be happy that this is categorised as folk music, but it most certainly is. It's Tones Van Zandt, ladies and gentlemen, the Rambler. That's what he was, and it's his second album, Our Mother the Mountain. And you can see him on the front cover in his cowboy hat. And yes, do not be fooled by the vocals, because he has a very strong southern accent. I need to turn my bloody phone off, it keeps beeping. He was from Nashville, I think, Nashville, Tennessee. And yeah, it's very country-esque, but it is folk music through and through, make no mistake. There are stories of some dark stories in here, guys. Fantastic lyricism. You know, I just spoke about Kings of Convenience. Nice lyrics all across their music, but this guy's lyrics, my lord, some truly dark stuff. And he lived a troubled life. He's not the only one on this list who lived a troubled life. Some of the others have, not all of them. And when they bring that darkness into the music and they let you into their story, it's compelling and it's quite incredible. And tragic, I think Tones Van Zandt died in 1997. I'm just going to look on his Wikipedia here. Drug addictions, alcoholism, psychiatric diagnosis of bipolar disorder, the now discredited insulin shock therapy erased much of his long-term memory. Supposedly he was a teller of tall tales as well. He used to tell people lies and stuff. Not in an evil way, but maybe to just, I don't know, to appease himself. But what a character. I love this kind of shit music, I really do. But this album, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pretty dark one. But it's also got a lot of beauty. There's some harmonica I see here, some flute and string arrangements, quite a lot of personnel getting involved on this. The production is pretty high quality. It's not that burr all the way through. There are quite a lot of people who helped out on this album. The track I'm going to pick as my favourite is going to be probably the first one, Be Here to Love Me. I think it's the song She Came and Touched Me, which is like a Bob Dylan track that I can't remember, but it's very, very similar. But anyway, if you've never listened to Tones Van Zandt, get on that guy's discography. He's made some incredible albums, but my favourite is Our Mother, the Mountain. In at number 8, ladies and gentlemen, we're going modern day, and I'm looking at this now and I'm thinking to myself, is this really number 8? Because for me, I'm no expert, but never mind just folk music, this is one of the best albums ever made, ladies and gentlemen. It is self-titled. It's Fleet Foxes. With Fleet Foxes. Released in 2008. Running in at 40 minutes. And I don't know what to say about this album. It's near perfection. And more so than the last two albums that I spoke about, where perhaps there are a few weaker tracks. This album is incredibly consistent and solid. The harmonies, I don't even know who's harmonising here. I don't even care. It's just like pouring honey into your motherfucking ears, ladies and gentlemen. I even feel bad swearing on this one because it is just such a beautiful album. Production is outrageous. Like I said, the harmonies are just gorgeous to listen to. Fantastic guitar playing. We have on this album, of course, Mr. What's his name? I'll find him. The drummer, the guy who's a little bit of an oddball. Oh, did he not help on this album? Wait a minute. I'm trying to find him. Oh, J. Tillman. I thought he was on this album, but I can't see him. But he left to do his own thing. He's a little bit of a weird man, that guy. I've never listened to J. Tillman's solo stuff. It's a bit more freak folk, supposedly, whatever the hell that means. But Fleet Foxes, there's a lot of honesty, beauty, and integrity to their music. I love the front cover as well. It's supposedly from a museum in Berlin, I do believe. There's actually a story of it on Wikipedia. But yeah, when you listen to this album, if you've never heard it before, you just want to frolic in the forest and be at one with nature. Okay, I'm talking bullshit, but it's got that kind of vibe, you know. And my favourite track on this album, oh my lord, this is so fucking difficult. I love Quiet Houses, but I think I might go for Blue Ridge Mountains with, you know, the lyric, I love you, or brother of mine, and all that shit. There's that camaraderie between bros, and it's all over this album, that as well, and it gives me goosebumps, and it's absolutely amazing. And sometimes Robin Pecknold, the lead singer, he goes kind of a cappella, and everything else in the song just drops, and you've got his vocals. It happens in Oliver James, the last track, and yet again it's goosebump inducing and just absolutely fantastic. Fleet Foxes, if you don't know, released 2 albums after this. Helplessness Blues and Crack Up released just this year, and also an EP called Sun Giant. If you never heard the Fleet Foxes' first EP before they released this actual album, I've got it, and it's got more of an electrical kind of side to it. There's a few songs that remind me of classic Strokes albums actually on there. It's pretty interesting to listen to, and I do recommend it. But Crack Up, I enjoyed it, but I need to listen to it again. This is a very easy album to get into, in my opinion. If you can pair it with Crack Up, that's not so easy to get into. But yeah, Fleet Foxes, so first debut album, just absolutely immense. One of my favourite albums of all time. And you know, there was a man who gave a lot of inspiration to Mr. Robin Pecknold. He did a cover of one of his songs, and then at number 7, it's that man. Another self-titled album, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going back to the 1960s for this one. It is none other than Mr. Jackson C. Frank. And you thought that it was a tragic story with Townes Van Zandt. It's not as tragic as this man's story. Perhaps in my personal top 10 list here, the most tragic story of them all. He only made one album, 1965, self-titled, like I said. Released by Columbia Records, December 1965, I already mentioned that. Produced by Mr. Paul Simon of Simon & Garfunkel, ladies and gentlemen. Frank was apparently so nervous at the time of recording, in order to play and sing, he had to have screens around him. The album was recorded in less than 3 hours in London at CBS Studios. It's been re-released a few times as it got more popular as well. The track Blues Run the Game has been recorded by many musicians: Sandy Denny, Counting Crows, Bert Jansch. Bert Jansch, he made a few good albums, yeah. Laura Marling, Mark Lanigan. And the track I Want to Be Alone, also known as Dialogue, appeared on the soundtrack for the film Daft Punk's Electroma. Yeah, this guy kind of on fire walking through the desert at night. It's absolutely amazing to see. But ladies and gentlemen, Jackson C. Frank, you know, I've got to try and be pretty quick with this video, because I did my top 10 rap albums and my top 10 Catatonia albums. I personally picked Catatonia to do that on because of my favourite band of all time, and they last like 25-30 minutes, so I am brushing through these and going through a little bit quicker than I would like to. But the main reason I'm doing this is to share my love of these albums and hope that other people can fall in love with them too, and maybe, like I said before, other people give me new music. But I am missing out key details, because something about Townes Van Zandt before was that I loved his vocals, but he didn't have the strongest vocals in the world. Jackson C. Frank, however, his vocals soared and they were absolutely amazing. And for me, especially on the track Kimby, which, oh man, I think I'm going to pick Kimby as my favourite track on this album, just ahead of Just Like Anything, because he's subdued on Just Like Anything. It's one of the most kind of downbeat tracks on the album. Kimby, he's wailing. He is going for it, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to sing along with him, and these kind of albums sometimes I end up doing, so I'm not quite as good, I must admit. Blues Run the Game, Here Come the Blues, he's wailing in that one as well. Dialogue, I Want to Be Alone, My Name is Carnival, You Never Wanted Me, Just Like Anything. There isn't a weak track on this album in my personal opinion, ladies and gentlemen. And you might be thinking, well, why the hell did this guy only make one album? Well, he died in 1999 at the age of 56, not old. But I don't want to read you his full story, but go on his Wikipedia page, read it all for yourself. It was bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. And it's just absolutely astonishing and shocking what happened to him, really. And yeah, it's so sad because he could have made so many more albums. I've got a compilation of kind of rare tracks that he did in decades after this, but his voice was gone by then. It's incredible. But still, we've got this album. We'll always have this album. And to people who've heard it and are nodding their head and understanding what I'm talking about here, they'll know just how good this is. It's one of my favourite albums ever. Jackson C. Frank, in at number 7, ladies and gentlemen. But now, ladies and gentlemen, in at number 6, we've got the only woman on the list. And there's no surprises, like I said. But you know, you can't deny it's one of the best albums of all time. It is Blue by Miss Joni Mitchell, released in 1971. And this is her 4th album, and she has made quite a lot of albums, not sure quite how many. And I love a good 4 or 5 of her albums, a few before this and a few after, in the 70s mainly, in her peak, really, if you will. But this is just so consistent, so beautiful, so heartfelt, so honest. There's a little bit of naivety in there as well, with the track A Case of You. A woman, ladies and gentlemen, a woman declaring her love and appreciation for a man. Certainly wouldn't be allowed in 2017, I'll have you know. Very controversial. But my personal favourite track here, let me have a think. Oh, you know, I don't know why. I mean, the whole album is incredible, but I think Little Green is never quite given the appreciation that it deserves. Blue is also incredible, obviously. But yeah, Little Green is the one I'm picking as my favourite. I don't know what to say about this album, though. There's a few more people on personnel, guitars and drums and whatnot. But she's got an amazing voice, good guitar playing, and it's one where I'm just going to let the music speak for itself. I'm not actually going to speak more about this. There's not a weak track on it, and it's one of the best folk albums of all time. It's a bit more of a obvious one, you know. Some of the albums I've spoke of here, I won't say I would have been left of field, but not so obvious. But when you think of best folk albums of all time, anyone's a huge folk fan, this is going to be one of them, for good reason. Although, having said that, you know, let's have a look. Court and Spark, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Hijira, 1975, that's great. Ladies of the Canyon, The Hissing of Summer Lawns, is that a great one? Yeah, that's a good one as well. All great albums, guys. If you've never listened to Joni, please go ahead and do so. But in at number 5, we're talking about obvious. Well, it's time to talk about the most obvious one of all, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Dylan himself. Or to give him his full name, Mr. Robert Allen Zimmerman. The Zimmerman, I love it. And yes, this is his 5th studio album, ladies and gentlemen, bringing it all back home. And this was about the time when he was starting to make more kind of electric guitar sounding albums and less politically based albums, a bit more obscure and abstract and personal to him and not society and what's going on around him and all that bullshit. But I think you get the great balance here. You get the rock tunes, some bangers. People don't realise about Dylan, who aren't huge fans, is a lot of this music is, head bobbing. Especially something like, where is it? I think it's Bob Dylan's 115th Dream, I think. That is just so good. Everyone knows about Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's just like nearly the perfect folk song, isn't it? She Belongs to Me, Love Minus Zero, No Limit. It's all Over Now, Baby Blue. They're the kind of more emotional sounding tracks, if you will, on this album. Outlaw Blues, that's one of the bangers, you know what I mean? Head bobbing shit. Awesome. So good. And to be honest with you, it was a toss-up between this and either Blood on the Tracks. Blood on the Tracks, possibly the darkest thing he's done. But there are a few tracks on that album which I'm not as keen on. I know that's heresy, a lot of people will say, but no, there's just a few tracks that I'm not as keen on, but don't get me wrong, I fucking love some Blood on the Tracks, ladies and gentlemen. And what else we got? We've got, obviously, The Times They Are A-Changing, Another Side, Highway 61, Blonde on Blonde. I think it's John Wesley Harding. It's more of a country vibe on the album, but I did like it. And my favourite, more modern Dylan album would be Modern Times, and is it Time Out of Mind, which I've just got to mention as well. I know I'm going from album to album now, but Make You Feel My Love is one of my favourite songs of all time. Obviously everyone knows it from the Adele track, but it is nowhere near as good as the original. It's nowhere near as sincere, coming from a woman, if you ask me personally, and I just think Dylan's version is truly heartbreaking and utterly incredible. But yes, my favourite Bob Dylan album, ladies and gentlemen, is Bringing It All Back Home, and for me it's just got everything that I'd want from one of his albums. So there it is, in at number 5. And at number 4, ladies and gentlemen, we're going back to the modern day, going back to 2008 now, and a man who, one of his songs I have actually uploaded onto my YouTube channel. It's got just over, I think, 55,000 views now, something I'm quite happy with. People have given it a thumbs down because it's in 240 quality, but whatever, I uploaded it back in 2011. It is April by Kil Moon, Mr. Mark Kozelek, one of my favourite artists, musicians of all time, one of my personal heroes, even though a lot of my music heroes, if I'd meet them, I'd want to shake their hand and get a picture taken, and, oh, how are you doing? I'm wow, your music means a lot to me, I'm not bullshitting you, all this kind of stuff. With Mark Kozelek, I'd keep my distance and not want to talk to him, because he's well known to be a man who you don't really want to get on the wrong side of, but maybe he wouldn't agree with that, I don't know, but I've seen some kind of live performances of his music and whatnot, and he can come across as quite abrasive and abrupt and whatnot, but I think in a live kind of arena he does it to help him deal with the tension and the nerves that he's going through. I don't think he finds that side of things easy. I might be wrong, but that's just how I feel. But this album, ladies and gentlemen, April, Mark Kozelek, if you don't know, started out in Red House Painters, and then started with Kil Moon, a different band after that. I think it's always been, with Kil Moon, different band members coming in and out, whereas Red House Painters were one consistent unit. But he's also made solo material, a shit ton of covers as well. He is, in my opinion, one of the best and most underappreciated singer-songwriters of all time. Even though people who know him know how good he is, he should really be bigger. I absolutely adore the whole old Red House Painters stuff. If you don't know, it is some truly dark, introspective shit. Kil Moon, the songwriting is a little bit more tight and not as kind of juvenile, I guess you'd call it, because when you listen to Kil Moon, it's not coming from a younger man, it's quite simply coming from a more middle-aged man, which Mark now is. But yeah, this album, ladies and gentlemen, there's some more folk rock tracks on here, which is the one, or like The Light, for example. Lost Verses, it just has this ethereal, beautiful feeling to it, and Mark's kind of telling this ghost story, I think, in Lost Verses. Someone called Katie, who he spoke about in probably the Red House Painter's most famous song, Katie song. Now, I believe in real life she passed away, and he's singing about her here, and you do get that ghostly feeling. Gives me shivers. It's absolutely astonishing. Then Lucky Man, which is the song I was speaking about before, which I uploaded onto my YouTube channel. There's that. It's basically just Mark's backstory of him growing up in Ohio, talking about his mum, neighbourhood friends, how lucky he is, moving from place to place and all this. Just, oh man, it's amazing. It's amazing. Harper Road, Moorestown. Oh, actually, Moorestown might be more of his backstory instead of Lucky Man. I think both are, really. But you've got these longer tracks on this album, kind of a more progressive edge, if you will, with things like Heron Blue, which was on, I think it was, pardon me, for the Gears of War 3 before it came out. That was the song they used to advertise the game. It's pretty cool. And Tonight the Sky, Tonight in Bilbao, and also Blue Orchids, which featured, what's his name? Will Oldham, what's he called? Bonnie Prince Billy. A lot of people will know him. I really need to try and listen to I See a Darkness, because I've listened to a few of the tracks in the album, really liked it. Supposedly it's one of the best folk albums of all time. I need to get into that properly. But yeah, like I said, April isn't the easiest album to get into. None of Kil Moon's music is that easy to get into, but I would recommend probably starting with Ghosts of the Great Highway, the first Kil Moon album. If you like that, move on to April. And I've also just now got to give a special mention to Admiral Fell Promises, which was played, I believe, on a specialised kind of Spanish classical guitar. And I personally think it's an insanely underrated album. You want to listen to the track Alisund, which is a place in Norway, I think. It's just fucking absolutely incredible. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. Anyway, number 3, ladies and gentlemen. It's the second time we're going to Scandinavia now. But this time, we're in Sweden for one of the most perfect albums of all time. And an album that from start to finish has me on the verge of tears. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the tallest man on earth, and it's The Wild Hunt. Released in 2010 on the label Dead Oceans, running in at a mere 35 minutes. But there ain't a bad minute of that 35. This, for me, is one of the best modern folk albums of all time. And the tallest man on earth, when people listen to him for the first time, a lot of idiots would just say, sounds like Bob Dylan. Yeah, he obviously sounds quite similar to Dylan, but that's where it ends, you know. He's his own man, he's got his own songwriting style. A lot of his songs can be personal, but then they can be wacky and weird and about things that are really out there. I think this is the most cohesive thing he's done. I think it's the best thing he's done. A lot of these tracks are very short in length, only 2 over 4 minutes long. And at the end of this album, there's Kids on the Run, which kind of hinted at the direction he was going in. I really wasn't too keen on his last album, Dark Bird Is Home, I think it was called. It was less folk, it was more pop, and so many folk artists do this, and for me it's never as good. But people will say, well, you can't keep making the same album twice. But I think with modern music, we're a little bit too obsessed with moving on and just making a totally different kind of album. You know what I mean? Eventually, what's going to happen? The tallest man on earth is going to make a hip-hop album? It's fucking stupid. Hopefully with his next album, we return to folk music. But apart from Dark Bird Is Home, which I wasn't too keen on, everything this guy has done is absolutely amazing. His first album, let's have a look what that was called. If I can find it. Shallow Grave, yes. There's No Leaving Now, and a few EPs, one self-titled one, and also Sometimes the Blues is Just a Passing Bird. His voice is amazing, and it's an acquired taste, okay? You know, you've got to compare him to Dylan. Okay, it's an acquired taste, not for everyone. He's got a very loud, powerful voice, but there's so much beauty. This guy is an incredible guitarist as well, intricate finger picking. You know, you can get so much more emotion out of a song, in my opinion, with finger picking and these weird rhythms than just strumming of a guitar. It's so different, and that's why so many more kind of mainstream, modern, supposedly folk artists or singer-songwriters, it's not as good as this style. Troubles Will Be Gone, The Wild Hunt, King of Spain. That's such a triumphant sounding song. But then you've got Love Is All and the absolute heartbreaker, A Lion's Heart, ladies and gentlemen. If you've never listened to it before, please do. The Wild Hunt by the tallest man on earth. But in at number 2, ladies and gentlemen, we are going a decade back altogether. We're going 13 years back for this man's second studio album. And I've got to say, the 2 that are on this list, the next 2, the final 2, are no longer on this mortal coil. They're no longer with us, giving a little bit of a secret as to who's number 1 there. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Mr. Elliott Smith, self-titled second album, Elliott Smith. And this is one where people may say, well, this is more purely singer-songwriter. I don't really care. I'm putting it under the folk moniker, I'm putting it under that label. To say this is dark would be an understatement. You, to enjoy this album, have got to appreciate that it's going to be a very harrowing listen, if I can say it right. And there's a lot of honesty from Elliott here. He was a troubled man in many ways. I think he was addicted to heroin throughout most of his career, most of his adult life, really, which ended up to really be his undoing, unfortunately. He never really got off it, as far as I'm aware. And, the front cover of the album is someone jumping off a building committing suicide. So you have it all there. If someone can't get into dark music and just thinks, oh, that's depressing, because that's the thing with a lot of this kind of music. People just say, oh, it's depressing. But they never listen to the vocals, and they never listen to the music. They just hear it and say, oh, that's depressing. Shut their minds off. And to be fair, you know what? I do that with more happy music, to be honest, a lot of the time. Very introspective, this album, though. Holy shit. Anyway, the album's lyrics contain many references to drug use, which Smith claims are metaphorical. And thematically, Smith said that he personally can't get more dark than his self-titled album. Yeah, altogether, in terms of studio LPs, he made 5 and then a 6th one, which was after his death. And this is my favourite out of them all, but my lord, was it closer? No, closer, I should say, between this and Either Or. I think most people, if you did a vote, true massive Elliott Smith fans would say that Either Or is his best, because it bridges the gap between his older stuff and his newer stuff, as he kind of went to a more full sound and not as minimalist. But it's my second favourite album. Both utterly incredible, but I just love the complete and utter darkness and everything that encapsulates that second album, basically. The thing is with Elliott Smith, though, he didn't water down his material as he added more instruments and elements to his music, and it still had that same ethos that it did in his first 2 albums. When you listen to something like Figure 8, for example, which was his last album when he was with us in this world, that was a great album as well, as was XO. From a Basement on the Hill is my least favourite. But also, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never listened to the compilation album New Moon, I think a lot of those tracks were made, I should say, in the late 90s. Angel in the Snow, one of the best things he ever did. How it wasn't on an album, I'll never know. Looking Over My Shoulder, Going Nowhere, incredible. Riot Coming, First Timer. Oh man, there's another like 12 songs, like Half Right, See Now Things Are Hard, New Disaster, Big Decision. Absolutely sensational. Elliott Smith, a true legend. I wish he'd never died. Have a look on his Wikipedia. There's a kind of Kurt Cobain thing going on. Not going to get into any conspiracies. I do think that Smith was capable of, unfortunately, killing himself like he supposedly did, but some people say that it was his long-term girlfriend who stuck the knife in. But like I said, it's an utterly tragic story. But Elliott Smith, one of my favourite musicians of all time. My second favourite folk album is his self-titled second album. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time to move on to number one. 35 minutes now. This is absolutely ridiculous. No one's going to watch this. But it doesn't really matter, because on video, I'm going to tell you guys my favourite folk album of all time. And if I did a top 10 albums of all time, or if I had to do like a desert island thing, like someone said, for example, you've got 10 albums you can listen to till the end of time, or on this desert island, you only got 10 albums. In this particular folk list, I think out of those 10, I would say the first 2, because I need so many other genres of music, obviously. So 2 out of that 10 would be in this video. That would be the album that's coming up, and the second Elliott Smith album. After that, I'd pick other albums. But this, like I'm saying, is one of my top 10 albums of all time, never mind folk. And it is the third and final studio album by Nicholas Rodney Drake. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going for the full name. This is Pink Moon. It was released in February 1972, recorded in 1971, running in at just 28 minutes in length on the Island label, produced by Mr. John Wood. And for me, it's just astonishing. 28 minutes, and yet it's one of my top 10 albums of all time. It's my favourite folk album of all time, and there isn't a single second on this album which is out of place and that I don't like. I never get bored of it. I never will get bored of it, and it is just astonishing to me that something this beautiful and perfect can be created, as minimalist as it is. You know, it's such a special skill to make something, like I say, so minimalist, and just have it so addictive to the listener and so important to the listener and keep you coming back for more. And quite simply, it's all about the mix of the technicalities of his guitar playing. He was an incredible guitar player, some very peculiar finger picking, and he had long freaky fingers like I do. I should have been a guitarist, look at these. Or maybe they're piano fingers, I don't know. But yeah, Nick Drake, ladies and gentlemen, was a very, very introspective man. He struggled with depression and severe anxiety, just like Jackson C. Frank didn't like performing live, couldn't really communicate with other people, and I'm just fascinated by these characters, I really am. He's quite a middle class man. I think he was born in, I'm going to say, is it Burma? Wait a minute. Yes, Burma, where I think his dad worked. Maybe was an engineer or some shit like that. I can't quite remember, but he had a good job. And yeah, Nick was middle class, and you know, there's this story about him at university smoking marijuana whilst all his friends were actually, you know, learning and stuff, and he was just playing his guitar, just chilling. And you just get this picture of him being an incredibly relaxed guy, but so anxious around other people and just wanting just to play music. And he was getting into, it says here, like Dylan and probably other blues singers as well as folk singers. But his first 2 albums, Five Leaves Left 1969 and Brighter Later 1971, also incredible. But for me, I said it at the start of this video, I'm particularly interested in the more melancholic side of things. And this album, it is very dark, but there's, unlike the Elliott Smith self-titled album, there's an element of hope and beauty within that darkness, which isn't on that album, but it does exist here. My favourite song on the album, and what I guess is my favourite song in this genre ever, I guess, is From the Morning. You know, we've all thought about, let's admit it, it's very, very morose, but we've all thought about funeral songs, and if it's, for me, not Clair de Lune by Claude Debussy, going in the classical style, then it probably would be From the Morning by Nick Drake. 2 minutes 30. How you can make something that perfect in that length of time, I don't have a clue. I just don't have a clue. But if for whatever reason you've never listened to this album, you've quite simply got to listen to it when this video ends, if you're a crazy motherfucker enough to have sat through 40 minutes of me rambling. But yeah, you really must. I'm not going to lie to you, it isn't going to be easy to get into at first. And some of the tracks do sound quite similar to each other. But if it can fall into place for you, and if you do love dark, but gorgeous music with this softly spoken man, because my lord was he softly spoken, not strong vocals, he didn't have incredibly strong vocals, but the fact of the matter is he didn't need to, and that's the thing with this style of music, you don't have to have particular strong vocals. You know, the tallest man on earth has got great vocals, and he mixes in everything else that I love about great folk music, but Drake didn't have particular strong vocals, but he didn't need them. Pink Moon, Place to Be, Road, Which Will, Horn, Things Behind the Sun, No, Parasite, Free Ride and Harvest Breed. Pink Moon, the opening track, fantastic. Place to Be is a personal favourite of mine, but like I said, I'm going to pick From the Morning because it is just so utterly perfect. And you know, the thing is with Nick Drake's music, back in the early 70s when this was released, it didn't do very well, it didn't sell very well, and I just cannot understand why. Now obviously back in the day there was no Spotify, there was no iTunes, there was no YouTube and all this bullshit, but there was word of mouth. But of course he didn't like performing live and all that stuff, so, and I get the feeling that he wasn't keen on advertising himself either, so on that side of things he probably didn't help himself, but yet and still he should have been much more popular. He died, by the way, if you are wondering, from a supposed overdose of what was it, let's have a look. I'm trying to read it here. An overdose of amitriptyline, a type, I think I'm pronouncing that right, a type of antidepressant. He had gone to bed early after spending the afternoon visiting a friend. He got up in the middle of the night, which his family said he always used to do. Took some pills to help him sleep. Now, no one knows whether this was purposeful, that he meant to take his own life, or he didn't. People have said they kind of hope that he did mean to, because it'd make it less tragic, but that's just bollocks. It's tragic either way or whatever. But yeah, Nick Drake, a true legend, and one of my personal music heroes, and one, you know, Pink Moon, one of my top 10 albums of all time. This has been a long, rambling, insane video. I'm going to leave a link to each track in the drop down menu. No one's going to watch this because it's just too long, but I had to ramble on, like some of the guys in this video in the top 10. They had to ramble as well. Next top 10 on the list, I was thinking of doing top 10 Beatles albums or top 10 Metallica albums, because of obviously both legendary artists. I'm a fan of both. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But thank you to anyone who's watched this. I will be putting timestamps in the drop down menu so you can go from each artist to artist if you're interested in listening to me talk about that particular one. But thank you for watching, guys, if anyone has, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.